Do you want to grow the maximum number of tomatoes in the least amount of space possible? Do you want to know how to extend your growing season and take advantage of every single day you have before your first frost? In this video, I'm going to show you how to grow 30 tomato plants in 30 square feet and how from this bed alone over the past 2 years, I've harvested almost 800 tomatoes. Hey, I'm Brian with Next Level Gardening. If you're looking to join an online garden community that offers tips, tricks, and support to help you take your garden to the next level, you're in the right place. Get started now by clicking subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss anything. Now let's get growing. Now, if you didn't watch yesterday's video on how I build a trellis like this, I'm going to link it down below because without a trellis like this, you can't do what I'm about to show you. And what I'm about to show you is how to grow a ton of tomatoes in a small amount of space, and more importantly, how to extend your growing season as long as possible. Now, if you are in a smaller space, maybe you're growing in containers, I'm going to show you a little way at the end where you don't quite need this full trellis to make this system still work for you. Also at the end of the video, if you have already planted your tomatoes but still want to take advantage of this system, I'll give you a little bit of a scenario on how to do that. So let me show you exactly how this system works step by step. And just so you know, this system is only for indeterminate tomatoes, not determinate tomatoes, which are shorter varieties that produce all at once, and not for cherry tomatoes. It also only works if you prune your tomatoes to one main stem. Now, I have other videos on that, and I will also be doing a video next week, a brand new video, on how to prune your tomatoes for this method. So there's two ways to use this. I'm going to show you the first way really quick. It's a way that I did it for about 5 years, and then I'll show you the way I've been doing it for the last 2 years that really takes it to the next level. So once you have this trellis built, again, refer to yesterday's video, you're going to need some string. Now, this is heavy-duty, UV resistant, weather resistant twine, not something like kite string and not the brown, like natural looking twine that you can get. It will not last throughout the season. So I have that, and I have either a landscape staple or a piece of bent wire about 4 or 5 inches long, double. Now, after watching yesterday's video, you will know that there is a support up top with eye screws that correspond to each plant. So each plant has a support above it with an eye screw sticking out of it. And we're going to just tie it on one of these eye screws. Okay. Now we're going to run that string down to the tomato plant where we're going to insert this right next to the stem of the plant. And then we're going to tie this string onto that staple. Doesn't have to be super tight. Now this is the support for the tomato vine. I've gotten a lot of questions if this holds up to wind, if you get good string. Yes, it does. Now again, I've got other videos on pruning, but what we are doing is we are going to grow this tomato as a main stem. It's called a cordon, right up this string, and you can either wind the plant around as it grows, or you can use tomato clips, which I've got on my website, that will clip the stem to the string as it climbs. I personally just wind it around. I find it to be easier and less time consuming. The only thing you have to be careful of is not snapping the tip when you're winding it around. So just be careful. Do it in the heat of the day when the plants are a little more floppy. It's easier. So like I said, I did this for 5 years. The only drawback to this system is when the tomato plant reaches the top, which here is usually by the end of June, early July, it becomes an issue because at that point, it starts to flop back down. It starts to grow wildly at the top. And a lot of times it just snaps itself in half. Or it's hard to take care of way up there, and so it does end up with a lot of disease issues. Now, for those of you in shorter climates, that probably wouldn't matter because you're going to be getting close at that point to your frost date. And so usually what you do is cut the tomato plant off, which allows it to put all of its energy into the fruit it's already set and ripen that before the frost comes. However, with those of you who have first frost dates in October, November, or like me, December, you've got some more time. And if you have a mess at the top or it snaps off, it's done. So how do we extend that season? With one simple solution to this system, you can extend your growing season and have perfect tomato production all the way through till the end of your season. All you have to do is add these bad boys to the mix. Let me show you how this simple solution changes everything. We're going to start the same way with the landscape staple, and instead of the string, we're going to have the string attached to the hook. So we're going to put the landscape staple in there, unwind the string a little bit, tie it on. Now, if your plants are bigger than this, loop the string around the stem a couple of times, and then we're going to run it right up to the top, and we're going to hook that into the eye screw. Now, in years past, I have kind of shown you the aftermath of all of this and expected you to understand how it worked. I know a lot of people were confused by the whole process. So this year, I decided to start early and really show you how this works. And I'm going to use a very simple tool here as my tomato vine. It's just a bunch of yarn that I've tied together. So I'm going to put it under the landscape staple so it looks like it's growing out of the ground. As this plant grows, you're going to wind it around the string. And it's going to hold itself on. Like I said, you can use clips, but you don't have to. Still growing, still growing. Okay, now it's reached the top of the trellis. Now, instead of cutting it off or letting it flop and break and create disease, all we're going to do is remove the hook from the eye bolt, eye screw, unwind it 1/2 turn, and move it to the next hook. Now, the weight of this plant is going to keep this tight, and now it's got some more room to grow. When it reaches the top again, unhook it, 1/2 turn, move it to the next hook. Now, you're doing this with all the plants in the line. Now it has more room to grow. Remove it, 1/2 turn, put it on the next hook. Now it's got more room to grow. Now, a lot of people wonder what happens to the vine as it lays on the ground. Well, at that point, you've probably stripped those leaves because they've turned yellow. By June, the bottom 2 feet of my plants are pretty much naked. So as it grows, the bottom leaves are going to be removed, and it doesn't create a bunch of weight any more than it had before because the vine is laying on the ground. So what you end up with at the end of the season is possibly a 20-foot vine that has spiraled around this entire trellis. At the same time, your tomatoes never reach the top, never fall over, never get disease, and they're always within picking distance. We could have a 25-foot vine, but if it grows straight up, unless you're Jack in the Beanstalk, you're not going to be able to harvest those tomatoes. Now, you might be wondering what happens when the tomato reaches the end of the structure. So at that point, we take the hook off, maybe give it 1.5 turns this time, move it around the end and onto the clip or the hook on the other side, and keep it going. And it will just wind around and around. Thumbs up if you think this is as great an idea as I do. It's actually the way professional tomato growers in large greenhouses grow tomatoes. Now, the first couple of hooks that I tried a couple years ago, they were actually very weak. One had weak string that broke, one had a weak hook and it just bent under the weight of the tomato. So some of you who've been with me a while know I've spent a lot of time sourcing a good quality hook that I think is actually the best price out there for a pre-strung hook. So you don't have to worry about the string. And I now carry it on my website. I'll put a link down below. Now, this is our first video we've actually done on the hooks this season. And we've sold out of hooks. We started in February selling them on the website. We've sold out 3 times. So We have about 10,000 hooks in stock right now, so we should be good for a while, depending on how many of you think this is a great idea. But you can head over to the website and get those. So since I promised at the beginning of the video, I am going to show you how to use this if you've already planted your tomatoes, or if you're growing in a container or a small space that you cannot physically put one of these trellises. So if you've already planted your tomatoes, you can go ahead and build the trellis right over it. Maybe the spacing was not what you expected. Maybe this is a lot closer. My plants, using this method, can be 12 inches apart, hence 30 tomatoes in 30 square feet. If your plants are further apart than that, that's okay. You can still run the hooks and make the supports directly above them, and maybe even fill in with more tomatoes. If they're 2 feet apart, you can double your tomatoes by adding some more. So if you're gardening maybe 1 tomato, or you have a small space and you can't build an entire trellis, a simple T-piece structure made of anything you have will work. Wire it at the top, use the landscape staple at the bottom, hang the hook as the tomato reaches the top, flip it over, that lowers the tomato down. At the bottom, you can just kind of wind the old tomato vine in a spiral just to keep it nice and neat. Again, these hooks are available on our website, nextlevelgardening.tv. Please remember, we are not Amazon. We are a small family, 3 of us. Emily's working nonstop to get the hooks out, so it will take a few extra days than Amazon typically does it in. So thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't, give the video a thumbs up, and I'll see you next time.